What's going on, everybody? This is Derek J407 here on this very depressingly snowy day where I'm currently doing this review at, but that just made it a lot easier for me to sit in on a Saturday afternoon to watch NXT UK TakeOver Blackpool, live from the Empress Ballroom in none other than Blackpool, England, the first official takeover show for the NXT UK brand that's been up and running for the past few months. Hasn't had a whole lot of buzz, and even this show itself didn't really have a whole lot of buzz, but I think that's been for a few reasons. Just, the show comes on in the middle of the day on Wednesday. They've been, trying to play catch up with their tapings, which have been in the can for a long time, so they've been showing like 2 episodes back to back most of the times they've done it. And just not a whole lot of attention from at least mainstream fans or main WWE fans for the UK division. But hey, things are looking up for them. They just unveiled their new UK Performance Center this past weekend, and this first takeover show right here was excellent. This was a top-to-bottom great show. These takeover shows usually are great, but that's usually for the main NXT show. Didn't quite know how it was going to be for the UK boys and girls. But they put on a really good show. I enjoyed the hell out of it. An excellent opening match, a really good women's championship match, a great main event, a great surprise debut, although for some people it wasn't that much of a surprise, but a great surprise debut at the end. Even a cool surprise special attraction match that we got towards the middle of the show. So all in all, a really good show. So let's go ahead and start right from the beginning. I mentioned earlier a great opener, and that was the opening tag team match for the inaugural NXT UK tag team titles. The team of Mustache Mountain, Tyler Bate and Trent Seven, taking on the team of Zack Gibson and James Drake. Crowd hates Zack Gibson. By the way, the crowd all night was excellent. The UK crowds are usually my favorites. They chant and sing a bunch of crazy stuff, but I love them to death. They just have so much energy that just brings the show up even that much more. So, great from the crowd here. But, yeah, they do not like Zack Gibson so much, to the point where they had their own thing early on where they did this whole shoes off for Zack Gibson, or shoes off if you hate Zack Gibson kind of thing. So it was a little lost on me. Someone had to explain it to me on Twitter. But hey, they were having fun though. Speaking of having fun, these 4 guys sure as hell had a lot of fun because they put on a really great match. We know Seven and Bate can put on great matches. They had a whole bunch of them with Roderick Strong and Kyle O'Reilly last year. In fact, one of them got 5 stars from Meltzer. But all 3 of their matches in the summer of last year for the NXT Tag Team titles were great. So you knew going into this they were going to have a great match, and of course they did. Tyler Bate is, what they call him, a super strong boy or something like that, or really strong boy. he showed it. At one point he had both Drake and Gibson on his shoulders for a airplane spin. Now Drake managed to slip off right at the end, but he got a few more rotations in on Gibson. But yeah, the visual of him having both men on top of his shoulders like that, this smaller guy having both of these guys on his shoulders and spinning them around the way he did was incredible to watch. A lot of close falls in this match for both teams. At one point you really did think that Bate and Seven were going to get the win, but we saw the finishing sequence come. Seven and Drake were in the ring, and that left Bate and Gibson on the outside. Bate was on top of Gibson's shoulders right by the ring. Seven was going for some kind of lariat or something like that, but Drake managed to duck it, and when he did, he dove right through the ropes onto Bate, tackling him right off of Gibson's shoulders. Back in the ring, both Gibson and Drake double teamed on Trent Seven. They hit him with their Ticket to Mayhem finisher and got the 1-2-3. So the first ever UK Tag Team Champions are James Drake and Zack Gibson. Haven't followed the UK show too much, but I do know that Zack Gibson is hated. I've known that for quite a while, and it's no shock to me that they put the belts on him. Some people were a little shocked, but I don't know, that kind of heat, it's no shock to me that they managed to get the belts. But yeah, really great match. There was some stuff that I left out because I just couldn't catch it all to list it in my notes. Just a lot of great stuff, especially from Bait and Seven, one of the best tag teams out there right now. Great match. Up next, we were supposed to get Travis Banks versus Jordan Devlin, but they showed that, well, they had right before the match started, Travis Banks came out there, and then Jordan Devlin, while he was making his entrance, it was Travis Banks who attacked him in the rampway. So they started to brawl a little bit. Devlin started to go after Banks's injured knee, which I believe he was the one who injured not too long ago, and he just kind of beat him down and started beating his knee down to the point where officials and all that kind of stuff escorted Banks out of there and said that he would be unable to compete. But that was not enough to keep Jordan Devlin from having a match, because GM Johnny Saint and I guess his assistant, I forgot the name of the guy, but he said that they had a backup plan just in case something like this would happen. And out came Finn Balor to a monstrous reaction from the Blackpool fans here. They went ape shit when Finn Balor's music hit and he came out, did the whole pose. They were chanting his name. Just a huge surprise. Did not expect Finn Balor to be on this show in this capacity. Thought if he was going to be there, they'd show him in the crowd or something, but no, he was right there wrestling Jordan Devlin, his former tag team partner, former student. Jordan Devlin's mentor, kind of like a trainer for him. So a student versus teacher match right here on the show. With some proper build, this could have been an even bigger match, but as it was a nice little surprise. Going into it, I thought, okay, well, here's where Balor just kind of does his greatest hits, and Jordan Devlin gets a little bit of stuff in there, but ultimately Balor gets the win. But nope, that's not what happened. They had a really good long match. Devlin looked strong for a good chunk of it. He was on offense for a good portion of the match. He was taunting Balor at different points, and he was really beating him down. He was doing his own foot stomps and all that kind of stuff, and he looked on par with Finn Balor, this guy who was the first ever Universal Champion and competes on Monday Night Raw every single week. You have this guy over here in the UK. Look, now, of course, the whole Spider-Man meme of the two pointing at each other, that kind of applies to these guys. They look eerily similar to each other. But, now they were on equal footing. But it was in the end, when Devlin went for a moonsault, Balor got his knees up to block it, hit the corner drop kick, and got the coup de grace for the win. So Finn Balor does get the win, as he should have. But it was very good to see that Jordan Devlin still looked strong in the process. Up next, we had a no disqualification match between Eddie Dennis and Dave Mastiff. Eddie Dennis had a undefeated streak for a while that Dave was the man to beat him on, and so they've been going back and forth ever since, and their feud culminated here in a big brawl, no disqualification stipulation type match, and they had a really good brawl. Eddie Dennis is really tall, but he's kind of lanky. He doesn't have a whole lot of muscle mass to him. Dave Mastiff, however you say his name, I'm sorry if I butchered his name a little bit there, but he is huge. He is Vader size. In fact, he was wearing Vader type gear in this match. But this is a big boy, and looks can be deceiving because he wrestled very unlike a big boy. Although we've seen the whole really big guy who can move around really quick and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of expected that he could go, and he really could. He was very impressive in this match with Eddie Dennis. In fact, he stood out a lot more to me than Eddie Dennis did. As far as personality-wise, Eddie Dennis, to me, his personality is just not really all that appealing to me. Although he did have a lot of really cool feats of strength in this match. At one point, there was some steel steps in the ring, and Mastiff was coming off the ropes, and Dennis caught him midair, had him in horizontal position. They showed his knees buckling and all that kind of stuff, and he swung him around and hit him with a sidewalk slam right onto the steel steps. So I thought that was a really cool spot. At one point, Mastiff, he hit a rolling thunder on Dennis onto the floor. The floor was exposed. It showed wood, so I thought that was pretty interesting. But he did it on the floor on the outside. But towards the finish, Dennis tried to go for a powerbomb off of the top turnbuckle. He managed to hit it earlier, but I guess what he usually does is carry his opponent from corner to corner and then hits it. So he was trying to go for that. He didn't do that earlier, so he's trying to go for that. But Mastiff managed to slip out, hit him with a release German suplex, and then had him propped up. Not propped up, but positioned right by a table that was set up in the corner, I think by Dennis, a little earlier in the match. And Mastiff hit a cannonball, and he cannonballed Dennis right into the table, pinned him 1, 2, 3 to get the big win. So Dave Mastiff gets the win. Like I said, I was a lot more impressed with him than I was Eddie Dennis, but that's just me personally. I don't know too much about either one of these guys, but from what I saw here, very impressed by Dave Mastiff. Big motherfucker, and he really shined. So him getting the win was definitely good for me. Up next was the NXT UK Women's Championship match. Rhea RIpley, the champion, defending against Mae Young Classic winner Toni Storm. We all know about the bullshit that Toni Storm's been going through in recent weeks with her private photos being leaked out onto the internet, and her being basically harassed by people online over it, kind of shaming and blaming her for all of that stuff. And it resulted in Toni kind of quitting social media, deleting her Twitter and Instagram and all that kind of stuff. And we've had a lot of wrestlers and fans alike, the We Support Toni hashtag over the past couple of weeks. And I support Toni too. And I definitely supported her in this match because she was great in this match. But of course, so is Rhea RIpley. Rhea RIpley, only 22 years old. The commentator said that, and I knew that before. They said that in the Mae Young Classic that she was really young, but 22. I think Toni Storm's not too much younger than that. She's either 21 or 22 too. So they're both really young, so they have bright futures ahead of them. And they put all that on full display in this match. This was a great match. This was a rematch of the finals of the match to determine the first ever UK Women's Champion. And in that match, Rhea actually injured Toni, injured her back and her leg. It was mainly her back, and that led to Rhea getting the big win. So going into this match, there was that fear that history would repeat itself, and it looked like it was going down that route early on because Rhea was dominating her for a good portion of the match. A little slow going, but it built up to Toni making a comeback and showing some signs of life. Both women hit their finishers on one another. Rhea hit her Riptide finisher on Toni, which Toni kicked out of, and Toni also hit her Storm Zero move, which, of course, Rhea kicked out of. But towards the finish, Rhea was going for her Riptide again, but this time Toni was able to slip out of it, and she started to pull on Rhea's hair. She started to pull and yank on the hair, got her in position, hit her with the Storm Zero, and got the big 1, 2, 3 win. So Toni Storm is the new UK Women's Champion. Big win for her. The crowd just showering her with all kinds of applause and praise and all that kind of stuff. Mixing my words up a little bit there. But, no, really good for Toni Storm. Like I said, even outside of all the bullshit with the photos and all that kind of shit, like, all that, put that aside, this was just a really cool moment for, Toni Storm, Just seeing her get a big championship win, on a big platform like this was just really cool to see. Nothing against Rhea RIpley. I'm a big Rhea RIpley fan. I've been a fan of her ever since I saw her in the previous year's Mae Young Classic, and she came back this past year with a new look, new attitude, all that, and she really impressed me. I was very happy to see that she was the first champion, and Yeah, good stuff. But I love Toni Storm a little bit more. This match easily could have been for either the Raw or SmackDown Women's Championship, and it wouldn't have felt out of place. These two have that much star power, that much talent to warrant being in a position like that. But I will definitely accept them being in the UK division for now. Although I am dying to see a Rhea RIpley Charlotte Flair match at one point. Charlotte Flair was on the show. They showed her in the crowd, I think right before the main event. So she was there. So that just got it flown in my head even more. That's a match that I definitely want to see at some point. And in the main event, Pete Dunne taking on Joe Coffey, defending his United Kingdom Championship. Pete Dunne was 601 days as champion for Pete Dunne, the longest reigning champion of any kind in the modern era. So, very impressive for him. Would that all come to an end in this match? I had a feeling it would. Like, just all the emphasis they were putting on how long Dunne has been champion and all that kind of stuff, and I just looked at Joe Coffey and thought, maybe they're setting him up to get the big win on this show, the first ever TakeOver show for these guys. Pete Dunne's been champion for so long, and Joe Coffey's the new big heel, top heel in the brand to go up against him. But wasn't to be. These two had a really good match, a really good back and forth match. I did take a little bit of an issue with this match. While good, it was great even. A great main event for this show. I did feel it went on just a little bit too long. They kind of overstayed their welcome just a little bit. I kind of got a vibe that they were kind of staying out there a little longer than they could have, or probably should have, whichever way you want to look at it. But, yeah, it was still a great match, though. There was a lot of great stuff that happened in this match. Pete Dunne hit the bitter end. I mean, how many times he hit? Like 3 times? 2 of those times, Coffey kicked out of it, though. One time he hit it, but Coffey kind of rolled out of the way. But he did hit his move a few times, and it's like one of those times it probably should have been the end. There was one really cool spot. They were both on the apron, and Coffey kind of charged at Dunne and shoved him back first into the steel post, and then he hit a powerbomb right there on the ring apron, which, as we all know, is the hardest part of the ring. So I thought that was a really brutal spot. They were both on the outside, though, and they barely made it in before the 10 count. Look, the referee was kind of holding his count up a little bit. He was slowing down towards the end. So, I don't know if that was a botch or not, but it's like, it was a little more obvious than it probably should have been. At one point, Dunne had he was trying to lock in an arm bar, but he had Coffey in like a triangle choke position, although he didn't have him in a triangle choke. But Coffey managed to lift him up in a powerbomb position, but both men went up top. Let me rephrase it. Coffey brought him up top to the top turnbuckle and managed to hit, albeit sloppy looking, still nonetheless hit a powerbomb right off of the tippy top turnbuckle all the way to the mat. It just looked very impressive that he managed to get him up there in the first place and then hit the powerbomb. Even if it didn't look the best, it still landed right there. So I thought that was really cool. But the probably the scariest thing in this match was, again, Coffey brought Pete Dunne up to the top turnbuckle, and I guess it was Dunne who hit Coffey or whatever happened. Both men fell. Dunne landed in the ring, but Coffey landed from the top all the way down to the outside, and the sound of it, because it sounded like he hit the steel steps too, but it sounded really bad, and it looked awful, because he just kind of fell, and just kind of fell out of focus, and just fell out of sight pretty much, and it did not look good. But luckily he was okay. The finish came where I think it was Pete Dunne. He hit his bitter end move again. This time Coffey kicked out of it. I think this was like the 3rd or 4th time he hit the move. He kicked out of it again, but Dunne immediately put him in position to put him in basically a finger lock, and just started bending his finger back, and then Coffey tapped out, and that was it. again, I think you probably just could have ended it right there on the bitter end move. You didn't really need him tapping out to the finger. Although, have somebody bend your finger back really far, and we'll see how you feel about that. Because I was about to say it was probably a weaker finish, but I wouldn't go that far. But, yeah, you probably could have ended it on the bitter end. But, nevertheless, really good main event, really good match. Joe Coffey looked really strong in this match. And, of course, Pete Dunne continues his reign as champion. We get to the end of the show. They show the graphics and all that kind of stuff about to close out. But we know better. And there was talk leading up to the show, even during the show. A lot of people who I follow on Twitter were talking about it, and they all suspected we would be seeing a new face after this match was over. And that's exactly what happened, because they played some very dignified music, and out came Walter, a huge star in the British wrestling scene. I think he's a former Progress champion. But yeah, Walter, very tall guy, very big man, but like I said, looks very distinguished and dignified. Walks out there, gets in the ring, faces off against Pete Dunne. Joe Coffey, who was still on the outside, he hops up on the apron, gets in the ring, and Walter don't give him a chance. He just boots him right out of the ring, just a big boot right to the face. Made a really cool sound. And Walter and Dunne just kind of stared off against one another, and that's how they went off the air. Walter left the ring, he nodded his head at Dunne, and then left the ring, and Dunne posed, and that was the end of the show. So, really cool to see Walter, although it was a little predictable that it would happen, but just because it was predictable don't mean it was bad. It was really cool to see that visual. The fans reacted how you would think they would react. They went crazy for the appearance of Walter here, and I said it on Twitter, but if you're looking for the guy who's going to dethrone Pete Dunne for that UK championship, that guy right there, that's the guy to do it. I thought Joe Coffey would on this show, just based on the way they were hyping it up, but it's like, yeah, you could probably tell that Pete Dunne was going to win this, and somebody like Walter will be the one to beat him for it, and that's seemingly what the direction is going to be going forward. I'm not sure when we're going to get another UK TakeOver show, but the sooner the better. This was a amazing show, top to bottom. Not a single match on the show I would call bad or anything less than really good, which is par for the course with TakeOver shows. So you can just chalk this right up there with all the other takeovers we get with the regular NXT crew, and it's a win in my book. And I'm looking forward to that eventual Walter Pete Dunne match. So let me know when that happens. So that's it for me here. Like I said, great show. Next for me will be in 2 weeks. TakeOver Phoenix. We'll see Aleister Black taking on Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano and Ricochet, Bianca Belair and Shayna Baszler, the War Raiders, and Roderick Strong and Kyle O'Reilly. And then, of course, the next night will be the Royal Rumble match. So that will be a really cool weekend of wrestling there. So, until then, I guess I will talk to all of you guys later. Be safe. I'll try to endure all this snowy weather here, and check you guys later.